Okay, so Jim just told you about the origins of the working paper series, and I'm going to fill in some of the details. And my talk is titled Work in Progress, and there are actually 3 different meanings to that. And the one that you might not think of is that this really is a work in progress, and it's going to continue. And one of the reasons is that I thank Alex, who's sitting back there, for providing the data that I'm using, but as he knows, this is a little, we're still working on it, right? And so some of what I'm going to talk to you about, we just have some new findings, recent findings, and things that we're going to have to work on to get even better information. And since we're going to be celebrating in a couple of years the 100th anniversary of the NBER, we have some time to work on this. So we owe a tremendous amount to the NBER Working Paper Series. And prior to the internet, and as I look around the room, there are some people in the room who don't know what that means. Prior to the internet, the series filled a really huge gap in our ability to disseminate knowledge prior to publication. That's really, really important. So economics has differed from many other disciplines for a long time, and in many ways continues to do so. Both the sciences on the one hand and the humanities on the other have been in many ways far behind in terms of disseminating knowledge as it's being produced. An interesting issue about why that is the case, okay? So the NBER Working Paper Series, as Jim just said, started sometime before the NBER moved one of its offices or opened an office in Cambridge. It always had an office in New York where it's where it began, where its corporate headquarters are. And it opened the office in Cambridge around 77, 78. And so this is the essentially the flow of working papers, and Jim just said a bit about that. The series given here begins with 1978, when the first 7 NBER programs were established. And of course, everyone knows what DAE, ITI, LS, MF, PR, and the rest mean. Okay, so so these were the original 7 programs. We just heard that of these 7, 3 of them, EFG and LS and PE, which originally was not called PE, it was called taxation, they are the largest today, and they have the largest number of papers. The number of working papers per year increased over time from about 100 per year at the outset to about 200 in 1980, then to about 350 a year to the mid-1990s, and now more than 1,000 plus per year. And a very interesting question to which we would have to do a lot more research on is, why has the number of papers increased? Exactly what is it? And so for one thing, the number of researchers has increased within each program, and the number of programs has been expanded. Today there are more than 1,300 RAs and FERFs, and so that has increased. And what I'm going to say towards the end is that the number of authors per paper has also increased, and the fraction of authors who are non-NBER researchers is quite high. On average today, it's over 40%. So we need more research and understanding the production function behind the increase in papers. Okay. Now, the number of programs, as I said, expanded from the original 7 in 1978 to 12 by 1991, and then increased by 6 more. Jim and I are still trying to date 2 of these programs, HE and LE, which began, as Jim said, prior to when Marty brought the Bureau to Cambridge. But today there are 20 programs and about a dozen what are called working groups, okay? So as I said, the precise reasons for the increase in papers requires a lot more analysis. This is a project any one of you can work on, on the working paper production function. So more researchers means more papers, but there's more co-authorship, and there are also more non-NBER authors. In addition, so we were just talking about the number of papers per year or per period that people have put out. But over time, as Glenn is going to discuss, working papers themselves have become a lot longer. So not surprisingly, we have the cumulative number is ever expanding. Of course, we're celebrating number 20,000 where this line goes up to. And if this equation can be used in a predictive manner, and I don't bet a single dollar on it, okay? This is my prediction right now. Number 50,000 is going to be issued in January of 2030, okay? But lots of questions. Will the internet change the role of the NBER working paper series? It doesn't look like it has. We've had a long history so far, and it doesn't look like it has. So I'd like to make a few points about this series and its larger role in the discipline. First of all is programs per working paper. So first of all, the number of programs per working paper has increased. So programs means that, let's say I am in the development of the American Economy Program, the DAE, but much of what I write is also labor studies, some of it may be education. So I'll include those programs on my working paper to indicate to people that it's essentially like using JEL codes to indicate to people that they might be interested, and when we put them on the website, we will note that to individuals in the program. But what this means with this increase is that the number, it means that economics is seen through the lens of the NBER working paper series has actually become more eclectic. Okay, rather than being more specialized as we believe we are, and maybe, the rest of economics is, we empiricists have become more varied and more eclectic. Now, if you think that this is, I'm sure you're thinking, this is just a simple artifact of the fact that we have more programs. If you think that's the case, consider the following. So what I've done here is I've picked one program, one of the largest, which is Public Economics, PE, and I've done this two different ways. So I've held the number of programs constant. So the red line, or the pink line, gives programs listed for papers that give public economics as one of the programs. We don't know if it's, quote, the major program or a minor program. It's just one of the programs. The blue line holds the number of programs fixed at the 13 programs existing in 1993. And as you can see, they're both increasing. So it's not an artifact of the increase in the number of programs. Not surprising to anyone here is that the number of authors per working paper has also increased, and it has increased as well for the three largest programs, the programs that Jim mentioned, PE, LS, and EFG. And finally, the fraction of authors who are NBER members, and this is conditional on there being at least one NBER affiliate on the list, and the reason is because if there isn't one, it's a conference paper. So this takes out most of the conference papers. And so the fraction of authors who are NBER members decreases with the number of authors, and is about 60% on average in 2013. We can only do this right now for 2013 because we only have current membership in the Bureau. We don't have historic retrospective membership, which is what we're going to put together at some point. Okay. So, the point here is that the NBER working paper series is rather open to non-NBER researchers, and in addition, there are more authors than just NBER family members. This gets back to the production function issue. Okay, so in conclusion, I received my first working papers when I was 14 years old. Of course, I mean the legal document a minor had to obtain to get employment. Little did I know then just how important working papers would be in my life. Thanks.